I was born silent, but my thoughts screamed inside fragile bones. Nobody heard them. I learned early survival means swallowing emotions and smiling politely while bleeding internally. People clapped loudly for my strength, never asking softly why I needed strength. I mastered pretending happiness like a practiced language, spoken fluently, daily, without native feeling. My laughter echoed rooms, yet never reached the lonely corners of my chest. I carried childhood wounds like invisible medals, earned through endurance, never through choice. They called me resilient. I called myself exhausted, but exhaustion sounded weak, so I stayed resilient. At night I undressed, not clothes, courage, and laid beside my unanswered prayers. Faith felt heavy sometimes, like lifting mountains. With trembling hands, while doubting gravity, I asked God quietly why pain repeats. Lessons I already learned, without awarding peace. Silence answered patiently. With another sunrise, another chance, breathing, another test, surviving, I became my own shelter during emotional storms, teaching myself warmth without borrowed affection. Love arrived occasionally, but left footprints only, never staying long, enough to unpack. I questioned my worth through abandoned conversations, unfinished promises, and unread apologies. Some people stay temporarily, teach permanent lessons, then exit abruptly, leaving doors open. I learned attachment hurts more than abandonment, because hope delays healing, while absence begins truth. Every goodbye rewrote me, removing soft chapters, replacing them with harder punctuation. I stopped expecting explanations, because closure rarely arrives wearing honesty, instead wearing excuses. My heart became guarded, not cold, cautious, protecting fragile faith from careless footsteps. I love deeply still, despite everything stolen, because bitterness wins. When love surrenders, I talk to myself more than others, because self listens without interrupting pain. Some days confidence shines, other days doubt rots. Inside hidden spaces, behind confident smiles, I outgrew many rooms, yet stayed too long, hoping walls would expand, instead suffocating slowly. Time taught painful wisdom. People change naturally, promises age poorly, memories remain loyal. I forgave repeatedly, not because deserved, but because peace mattered more than vengeance. Still, forgiveness bruised me, each time quietly, like reopening scars. For familiar comfort, I stopped chasing validation. After realizing applause fades, but self-respect remains. During empty theaters, loneliness isn't empty. It's overcrowded internally, with conversations unsaid and love unreturned. I write to breathe. Words save me when lungs feel heavy from suppressed truths. My past visits nightly, uninvited, persistent, reminding me constantly what survival cost. I don't regret surviving. I regret normalizing pain, calling it destiny, instead demanding healing. Sometimes I miss innocence, that trusted easily, believed forever existed, without proof required, growing up hurt quietly, like slow poison, disguised as responsibility, administered daily. I learned strength alone isn't heroic living. It's sometimes silent suffering, misunderstood as bravery. I wanted someone once to stay consistently, not intensely, briefly, then disappear suddenly. Consistency feels romantic in a world addicted to temporary excitement and dramatic exits. I crave calm affection, steady hands holding, not chaotic passion, burning everything beautiful. I'm tired of healing from things uncaused by my mistakes, but by proximity. Being kind cost me more than anger, yet I remain kind, because cruelty poisons souls. I learned boundaries late, after bleeding excessively, teaching others limits by hurting myself. Now I say no, without long explanations, because peace doesn't negotiate with guilt manipulation. I sit with sadness instead of escaping, learning what it teaches about unmet needs. Some wounds whisper lessons, others scream warnings. Both deserve listening without rushing repair. I don't want perfection. I want honesty, even if it hurts, because lies linger longer. I became selective emotionally, not distant, deliberate, protecting sacred energy from careless consumption. My heart still hopes, quietly, cautiously, like planting seeds. After harsh winters, I believe softness survives, even inside armored souls, waiting patiently for safe hands. If you hear this, stay until ending, because healing begins when someone finally stays. If you want, I continued walking forward, even when legs trembled, even when hope whispered, rest is failure. I learned endurance slowly, through nights uncelebrated, where survival itself felt like rebellion. Pain reshaped my character, without requesting permission, turning softness strategic and trust conditional. I stopped explaining myself to ears committed to misunderstanding me. From comfortable distances, some judged my silence, calling it arrogance, never recognizing exhaustion, wearing dignity quietly. I lost friendships naturally, like leaves shedding, when seasons changed, without dramatic goodbyes. Not everyone deserves front row seating to your healing or your collapse. I stopped romanticizing struggle after realizing suffering doesn't equal destiny, it equals unresolved wounds. I wanted peace desperately, not applause anymore, not validation externally, just internal stillness. Stillness scared me initially, because silence amplifies voices long ignored inside emotional basements. I met myself honestly during uncomfortable pauses where distractions died and truth remained breathing. I discovered anger there, not violent, protective, standing guard firmly over violated boundaries. Anger taught me courage when politeness failed to protect self-respect. From repeated dismissal, I learned anger wisely, not to destroy others, but to defend myself without apology trembling. I stopped begging understanding from people committed to misunderstanding my intentions. For personal convenience, some people prefer versions of you broken because healed versions require accountability. Healing makes enemies silently among those benefiting from your self-neglect and endless forgiveness. I outgrew many expectations placed on my shoulders by people fearing their own reflection. I stopped shrinking myself to fit relationships that couldn't expand beyond selfish comfort. I realized loyalty differs from self-betrayal, and I practiced choosing myself deliberately. Choosing myself felt selfish until I understood self-preservation isn't cruelty, it's responsibility. I grieved old versions of myself tenderly, the naive dreamer, the endless giver. They loved recklessly, believed endlessly, and suffered deeply without protective armor. I thanked them silently for surviving lessons I couldn't have learned any other way. Growth feels lonely sometimes because healed perspectives distance you naturally from familiar chaos. Chaos once felt home because calm was unfamiliar and peace felt undeserved. By wounded hearts, I trained myself gently to sit with calm without inventing storms, to feel alive. Peace revealed buried grief, hidden beneath distractions, requiring patience, not avoidance. Grief doesn't want fixing, it wants witnessing without judgment, without rushing closure. I allowed tears freely, not as weakness, but as release. Stored pressure escaping, crying cleans internal windows, allowing light re-entry after long emotional winters. Inside guarded rooms, I learned masculinity differently, not through emotional starvation, but through accountability and controlled vulnerability. Strength includes softness. Discipline includes compassion, and courage includes asking for help sometimes. I stopped mocking sensitivity after realizing numbness isn't strength, it's unresolved fear. Fear once drove decisions, choosing familiarity over possibility, safety over growth. Now curiosity guides me, asking what heals instead of what impresses or temporarily distracts. I crave depth exclusively, conversations that undress souls, not small talk, recycling empty compliments. I value consistency highly because sporadic affection creates emotional addiction, not secure connection. I lure net attachment styles through lived experience, not textbooks, but scars. Anxious hearts chase reassurance. Avoidant hearts fear closeness, both craving safety, both fearing loss. I worked towards security by becoming reliable to myself first, before offering others. Self-trust builds slowly through kept promises, small daily commitments honored privately. I stopped overextending energy where effort felt one-sided because reciprocity sustains, not exhaustion. Love shouldn't feel confusing or constantly uncertain. Love should feel safe. Even during conflict, I walked away bravely from inconsistent affection, despite attachment pulling, despite loneliness threatening. Loneliness teaches discernment, showing difference between being alone and being unseen. I prefer solitude now, overcrowded emptiness, where presence lacks intention and connection feels transactional. Solitude introduced me to forgotten dreams, paused ambitions, and creative hunger. I resurrected passions quietly, without announcing growth, because progress thrives without external pressure. Not everyone deserves updates on your healing journey. Some only spectate, waiting for failure. I protect progress fiercely through privacy boundaries and selective vulnerability earned through trust. I no longer overshare pain to those entertained by trauma stories without offering empathy. Empathy is currency, Ra.